and seconded, sorry, to accept the meeting minutes from October 28th, 2021. Calvin?
I'm here.
Okay, so you want to say here
Present.
and we're voting on the approval of the minutes.
Oh, I support that.
Okay.
I'm
Rummel?
still hitting buttons. That's okay. I approve. I support.
Okay. Rummel?
Yes.
Gutman?
Yes.
Ruger?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Okay, and then Goff, Dumas are not here. Okay, and Kramer, yes. So that is 6 yeses then, because Gretchen has joined us now. Okay. The second item on the agenda is board business, and the first discussion up is Circle City Preparatory Charter School for a charter renewal. James, would you like to lead us through this discussion?
Yeah, and really quick before we get into all of these, I will keep this short because we discussed this a year ago. We are still sort of trying to navigate the sort of equity issues with regards to academic performance of schools. As you know, last year I gave you guys a memo on sort of just how things have been since the testing changes and the pandemic. To a certain extent, those things are still in effect in terms of our, we have data for 2021. It is, I guess suppressed in the sense that no one is really being held accountable, at least across the state from a state perspective this year. We do have the data and we did look at it. However, I think we're still sort of in that same, it's just difficult to know how valid and reliable it is. And I'll talk about that when we move into the individual schools. It's also difficult to ensure that we're treating adult high schools and the K-12 schools the same, because the way that we measure K-12 schools, more of that data is actually available. Although there's no question that adult high schools were also impacted equally by the pandemic in ways that, are within those data points, but maybe not in as direct of a way. So I resent you that memo. If you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. As you can see, we did analyze the data from 2020-21, and in the appendices, you'll see those numbers, those specific numbers. So with that beginning, unless anyone has any questions, I'm going to move into Circle City Prep.
James,
yes.
James,
Yes.
it's Mary Ann, and I'm sorry to bring this up. Before we get into decision making and everything, I just do want to touch base quickly. You know that I sent an email yesterday asking whether we had complied with all Indiana public meeting notification requirements for this meeting, including the separate notification to all journalists on the annual list. And were they also for our last meeting, October 28th? Journalists have complained to me that they didn't receive notice for either the October 28th meeting or the public hearings leading up to that meeting. And I understand why you didn't respond back by email. There's good reasons for that.
So, did we lose her? Marianne? Maybe we should just, I'm happy to address that, but wait till she's back. Marianne? Okay. We'll hold off on that when she comes back. I'm happy to address it.
Thank you so much.
Oh, are you back? Marianne?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I do have our contact list that has the list of all the individuals who have requested to be contacted. I'm happy to share it with you so you can check to see if any of the reporters that have complained to you are not on the list.
Oh, that
but-
would not be my role as a board member. Quite definitely not.
Okay, well, I don't, I won't be able to tell you if a journalist is getting notices unless I know whether they're on the list or not. We only put people on the list who request it. And I think we had a list from years ago that we just keep adding to and changing. Like I said, I'm happy to share it with you. The one thing that I will say is that since Nikki left, the notices have been coming from first Bridget and then now Bea as a new board member. So it's possible, if they had them, it could have gone to junk or whatever. I don't know. But after the meeting, I'll share the list with you. And if there are reporters who aren't getting notices that want to be, please have them reach out to me. So I'm going to move on to Circle City Prep. So Circle City Prep. Oh, the one other thing I wanted to mention is I also reshared the memo from I guess it was a year ago board meeting about the board we had discussed the potential of having 7-year renewals, and the board approved that as a possibility. So I've indicated on these renewal recommendations, what renewal that we're recommending. To start off with Circle City Prep, we're recommending that they are approved for the 7-year renewal. They met standard in all applicable summary evaluation categories. In this case, that means financial health and organizational compliance. We do have the discussion about academic success. And as we said, they have only 1 year of academic data because of their slow growth model and the pandemic and the testing changes. They've never received a grade on Indiana's 8th Rough system, and they have a waiver from federal grading. But looking at the data that we do have, Circle City Prep is actually, relatively speaking, within IPS performed very well. So we're encouraged by their initial results. Again, sorry, I just saw that, Beth. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do all that. Thank you, Beth. So you have the academic data there. You can look at it. Let's see. What we did is we broke down the proficiency rankings in the appendix based on the demographics, and then also where Circle City Prep is concerned, I read 3, and then the iLearn data. And you can see there, we broke it down into several categories in terms of where their performance in proficiency ranked, within IPS in general, within charter schools, and within what we're calling the comparable schools, which we've defined as schools with similar grade span and within 10% on various demographic categories. So as you can see, Circle City Prep, ranked very well in comparable schools and, overall in IPS. Sorry, I've got a lot of windows open. Again, financially, Circle City Prep has improved financially every year. They've been very consistent. Their enrollment has been consistent. It's risen every year consistently. They were able to actually complete a bond finance acquisition of their facility in the beginning of this year, which is great because they were sharing it with another school. And it allows them, or gives them, the not only control over the facility, the whole entire facility, but also the ability to expand as they move into servicing middle school students, which their original charter was for K-8. They are K-5, moving into K-6 next year. So they'll be starting their middle school next year. The transaction impacted some of their financial ratios, as I noted in their recommendation, but in the long run, we expect that it will provide financial benefit to them in all those ratios. So it's a temporary dip. They also received an expansion grant from the Mind Trust. And Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's to be paid this year and next year. And they're using it, at least in part, to train a new principal in the line, this sort of middle school curriculum and all of that. So, and of course, organizational compliance, the sort of third prong, been a model school. They have a great board of directors. It's very active, very stable, and they're actually considering having them perhaps asking them to provide some, not training, but maybe advice for other boards. They're moving from the transition from a sort of a starting board, a founding board, to an operational board, which they're being very intentional about, which is impressive, because that's sometimes an issue for new charter schools. So with that, I will stop. We are recommending them for the 7-year renewal, and I'll let, I believe I see Megan, and let her speak to the board, and then we can go to questions.
Thanks, James. Is it okay if I share my screen through WebEx? Bridget, is that okay? Thank you. Well, after all that, Bridget, we did this before during the hearing, and it's not looking like it's letting me do that. So I can just walk through what we kind of talked about in the hearing component of it. James hit on most of it. First, I'll just step back and say it's surreal being here 6 years later after our authorization in 2016 in what was just a vision for our school, and to be projected or stand and talk before you now and talking about a real live living breathing institution that is doing just what I believe to be incredible and life-changing work here on the Far East Side. We are college prep by mission statement, and we believe that the components of that are both in academics and culture for our students. It has been exciting to see, and I'll share with you real briefly how we've evolved as we've grown from 72 scholars in 2017 to currently serving 270 scholars kindergarten through 5th grade. We have a team of 35 amazing staff members who are just doing incredible things for kids every single day. As James mentioned, we were leasing or renting our facility at 42nd in Franklin. Starting in 2017, we were a one hallway school. We had a desk in front of a door, in which my dad made from IKEA. And now we have full-fledged real office furniture. We have the entire building that we secured in January of this year, that also allowed us to get about 1.1 million in capital funds as well. So we are now focusing from our permanent home to turning our home and our house into a home and making sure that it works for our model and for our scholars. This summer alone, we've invested over $400,000 into our facility and our parking lot to continue to make sure that the facility space represents both our mission and vision for kids and what we expect in our community as well. From repaving our parking lot to redoing some bathrooms, we also spent a significant amount of money building what we call the teacher wellness wing, which is a place where teachers have an opportunity to reset and reboot throughout the day, from a cafe space to shared workspace, to ensure that they can show up and work side by side with scholars during our 7:30 to 4 day. We serve primarily students on the Far East Side, although if I was able to share my screen, I'd show you a heat map of where they're located across Indianapolis. In year one, it was almost exclusively on the Far East Side. And as our family grew, a lot of our families were referring to other families and friends who do travel to us. We serve 87% free and reduced price lunch. We serve 19% English language learners. That has grown significantly for us. In year one, we only had one ELL scholar, and now we have about 50 or so. So we're definitely seeing a transition in our population there, and are excited to dig in around how to best serve our English language learners. And about 14% of our scholars have IEPs. Our racial demographic is 85% Black, 12% Latinx, and 12% white as well. James referenced this, but in our iLearn data in year one, which was last year, we had 3rd and 4th grade take math and ELA. In all categories, we outperformed our neighborhood schools. In every category except for one, we outperformed IPS school district. And now our goal set is in the next 3 to 5 years that we are meeting state averages in a community that has notoriously been some of the most underperforming schools. But besides just academics, we cannot be a college prep school and think that simply it's about academic outcomes. There's so many other components to ensure that our scholars are on track to lead and be what they want to be when they grow up. We've grown our program to have daily enrichment. We have Spanish offered K through 5, as well as dance. We ensure that we are celebrating multicultural across our classroom in celebrations and in our curriculum. All of our scholars engage in what we call excursions or field trips, 3 of them a year, one of which will be a trip to college campus, so that if you're with us K through 8, you would have experienced 9 different universities as you're growing to both see college as part of your future, but also identify what makes sense for you and where you want to be. We also have after-school clubs. This year, we've not charged anything for any of our scholars to engage in after-school programming, from chess club to photography to Cub Scouts to tutoring. We've expanded this and continue to expand it every quarter, and our students and families have loved this. We also have a mentorship program. We also provide weekly advisories and community circles for our kids to continue to make connections with one another, hands-on learning, and community celebrations. It is hard to be a Circle City Prep scholar. The work is intense, as it should be, to grow your brain every day, and we prioritize celebrating all the hard work that our scholars are doing. We cannot wait to continue this journey here in this building with this community and graduate our first class of 8th graders into high school in 2025. And we hope that you do renew us for 7 more years, and I can come back in 7 years and stand in front of you again and talk about the great things that we've done. Thank you.
So
Thank you,
much. Did we have anybody sign up, or do we have a way to sign up for public comment, or is there anyone who wanted to make other comments on this?
Hi, this is Chad Miller. I'm the board chair and would like to just make a brief comment.
Sure, please go ahead.
Awesome. I included my full statement in the board packet, which you can take a look at, but just wanted to highlight a couple things that I'm really proud of as the board chair. Small background, formerly an educator, spent 6 years at Indianapolis Metropolitan High School, the last 4 as a school administrator. Spent some time with Ms. Rummel, so it's good to see you, Janet. And then I've been with Megan for 6 years, so I'm a founding board member, one of the last ones on our crew. Our bylaws have a 2 to 3 year terms, so I am nearing the end of my time with Circle City Prep, but I'm excited to serve as the current board chair. Some of the things that I'm most proud of, we use a program called Board on Track, and Board on Track is a board management software, and one of the things that is included in that is an assessment that is done by our head of school, and also each board of director takes that. They use 9 indicators to look at the financial health of the board. On 6 of those 9 indicators, we were in alignment, complete alignment as a board and with Megan. And then on 3 of the remaining 3, we were within 1 point on a 5-point scale, which is awesome. We've got full board alignment. We're moving in the same direction, and that direction is to support Megan and the team doing incredibly hard work on a daily basis. I'm proud to have Megan as our founding school leader and our current school leader. School leadership, from experience, is one of the hardest things to do in this world, and I will put that up against anyone that wants to fight me on that. So to have Megan for 6 years and to continue to do the work and support our students is something I'm very proud of. Proud that we have acquired a building and can be a staple on the Far East Side. And then I'm proud that we're just striving to be something that is more than a better than school. That's something that Megan said to me in our first meeting together when she quote unquote recruited me to be a board member, and it's something that we strive for to this day, is being more than a better than school, because our students we're serving deserve more than a better than outcome, because the schools that they're going to that we would be better than are producing results that are unacceptable. And so we want to be on par with schools in the state and above schools in the state. And then finally, we know the work is not done. We've got a lot ahead of us, and we're excited to be able to go and take on that work, and look forward to getting renewed and doing that work and putting in the grind that it takes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there anyone else who had a comment? Gretchen, I see your hand. Do we do this as part of our board discussion, or do we do it now?
Yeah, we move on to board discussion.
Okay. Gretchen?
So thank you. I'm sorry I'm calling in on my phone and trying to, I've turned on my video, so hopefully you can see me, but I'm having internet problems, which I believe a lot of us are. So my question is, in looking at the data, I appreciate the presentation by Megan and the board member, but I have to say, and I appreciate the fact that you have only been operating for a brief period of time, so you don't have a long history, but your iLearn numbers are not really very impressive. Now, nobody's iLearn numbers are very impressive, So I'm trying to understand, which I think if you don't know how to read, you can't learn. So I'm trying to understand what is the focus of the school to get those numbers up?
Yeah. So one, I would say that if you are able to side-by-side comparison, and if I was able to share my screen, could show you a table of both how they compare to other schools in this community. We almost double what other schools are doing in this community, and we're outperforming IPS, which averages, which also includes schools from around the city in our first year as well. So I think in the first year we have immense pride of that, but certainly to your point, is no way that we are settling as that we have done our work and that we're done in general. And then also to navigate clearly e-learning and then COVID absences and all of those things with our students being tested. So we are fully on site at this point. We're fully staffed out, which is a blessing. I don't know how familiar you guys are with staffing currently in schools, but we have our full team of 35 teachers here. Today, I already had 2 conversations with both our instructional coaches where we're identifying exactly where students are. At the end of the semester, we're using what's called step tests to identify exactly what students need to be working on to push them forward. Out of 270 kids that were tested this round, 75% of them moved up step levels, which means they're increasing their proficiency in reading, something that we track on a continuous quarterly basis and then progress monitor throughout the quarter as well. So without getting too in the weeds, data is something that we talk about and monitor on a daily basis. Instructional coaches then work with their lead teachers and associate teachers, both to increase success in the classroom with kids, and then also identify intervention work that we haven't included in our day. So as I mentioned, we go from 7:30 to 4, which allows us to have an extended time. We have double the literacy and double the amount of math blocks as a student would have at a neighborhood school. That also allows us to pull small groups intervention. I'm also, as the head of school and executive director, I'm also in charge of 2 intervention groups at my school, as all leaders are in this facility. So everyone is a teacher in this space using data to make sure that we're moving forward with scholars. I think that to your point, that data will tell year over year, but we are continuing to move forward with a 7% increase goal year over year until we reach beat the state average on iLearn. If I also can talk a little bit more, if you'd like to hear a little bit more about our instructional strategy or how we use data or how we're kind of looking at that. But I'm completely rushing on board with you that we're not where we want to be. Again, we are proud of where we are, and then we definitely see a lot of room for improvement.
And I appreciate that, Megan. And yes, I would like to have a little bit better understanding. I appreciate we all want a we all kind of look at a maybe not the most flattering picture and try to turn it into the best piece that we can. I appreciate the fact that when you compare yourself to other schools, you are doing better. But I think there has been such a learning loss that we can't continue to kind of go, but look at the school down the street. We're 3 times as better that they are. I just think we have to dig in on this learning loss. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to go in the order that you're appearing on my screen. So I see Beth next.
Yeah. Hi, Megan. First, let me commend you on the tenure of your leadership. I think it really says a lot that you envisioned the school and founded the school and have been with it throughout its duration. I think that's really notable. One of the questions I have, so I know that you founded the school in partnership with Building Excellent Schools. Building Excellent Schools is a network of high-performing schools across the country. Could you say a little bit about what the school's relationship is with Building Excellent Schools today, specifically the level of autonomy you and the board have over decision-making, over your school curriculum, instructional practices, et cetera? And, any resources, supports, or engagement you have with BES today?
Yeah, it's a great question, Beth. So while we use the terminology network, I think sometimes it can mean different things to different people. So while we consider ourselves part of the BES network because I went through their fellowship to found the school, we are not connected to them in any way. They have no decision-making power over Circle City Prep, Building Excellent School, which now goes by BES, is simply a leadership entrepreneur pipeline and development. And then once our charter has been set, we go and proceed. So if you look at the, I think 7 fellows who did the fellowship with me, some do not engage at all with BES, some have continued their partnership, and it's completely up to them to that degree. Following our authorization, our only connection to BES was an executive coach that I had for my first 4 years as a leader. When we brought Tyrone Botley on, who will be supporting the opening of our middle school, we went back to BES and said, you know, we'd like some executive coaching for him. He's part of their LENS program, which is their emerging leaders program. So he gets live coaching and support from that as well. Another benefit that we have as being part of the network is I have connections to leaders across the country doing this work in various cities. So oftentimes we're able to and have ping them of like, what is your data looking like? How are you responding to this? So it's like a relationship capital there. And then just most recently that's top of mind is I actually took Mr. Botley and Sammy Hyde, who is our instructional coach, to New York last week, in which I was able to tour 5 to 6 high-performing schools in New York with them. A number of them were BES schools. So simply being connected there allows us to kind of leverage one another of what best practices in the work that they're using there. So they have no impact or say on our curriculum or any of those decisions. However, I do lean on them and the resources and the relationships I've created through the fellowship to access high quality curriculum and best practices to see how they fit with our community here.
Thank you. I see Janet has a question.
Hi, Megan. I just have a question getting back to the student achievement that Gretchen had brought up. I'm curious of a couple things. First of all, you might not know this right off the top of your head, but a ballpark's fine. So what is your retention rate for students, you know, versus new students coming in at various grade levels? And then do you know if you have if there's a significant difference in levels of student achievement on the iLearn, let's say, if you have a student maybe who had been with you since kindergarten or multiple years versus the students who may have been a move-in?
Yes, so I can talk to you about student retention. I'm pulling a document up here. So from end of year, so the end of year 2018 to the beginning of that next school year, so from year 1 to year 2, we retained 80% of our scholars. From year 2 to year 3, 79. From year 3 to year 4, 91. And that was a typical jump that you'll see at schools because that was during COVID. So people weren't transitioning as frequently as they were. And then this year, from last year to this year, we're at 86% retention. Now that's year over year. I can't yet tell you off the top of my head how many of them were here for 3 years and how many were here for 2 years. But those are the retention from end of year to beginning of the year. Okay. Oh, and then you asked about academic trajectory. I 100% need to dig in, and I can definitely do that. I know that we have initially broken down our ILR results based on who was with us previously, and I can just tell you anecdotally, almost across the board, every kid who did perform proficient on iLearn had been with us for an additional year, if not more. I've been part of our school community longer than just that initial year, but I can't give you those specific percentages off the top of my head.
All right, got it. Thank you so much.
I think I don't know if this is what you're getting at your point, but like one of our primary challenges is the transience nature of our community that we're in. We have the highest density of apartment complexes in the city. So oftentimes our community is not a place people kind of come to move and then live for long periods of time. And so there's a lot of movement in and out, which I also think is just true with a lot of schools. And so one of our priorities is tracking this, ensuring that we're kind of retaining as many kids as possible and working with families that they're staying invested, because the work that we have to do is not a 1 year. It cannot just be done in 1 or 2 years. It is a trajectory of a K through 8 education and experience. That continues something that we're evolving and the board and I are working on as well.
Thank you. Gretchen, did you have another comment?
No, sorry. I thought I lowered my hand.
No, it's Sorry, I think it's the connection. So is there anyone else from the board who has a comment?
Oh, I do. I don't have a hand to raise because I'm back to just phone only.
Right, phone.
It's Mary
Okay,
Ann.
go ahead, Marianne.
Is that okay? Okay, thank you so much. I have two questions. One's very specific and one, I think you'll probably want to tell me more about. One is, I see on the summary of the 14 similarly situated schools with a similar grade span and within plus or minus 10% SES, SPED, and EL population, that you rank first in math and third in ELA for overall proficiency. Can you tell us what the 14 similarly situated schools are? And I know they may be in the appendix. I've had a death in the family, and I'm sorry I didn't get to look at that.
So I might pump that question to James. So we did our own analysis based on geography, and I think ICSB has its own preliminary steps. James, did that come from our renewal application, or what they're looking at is from your guys's?
This was Bridget. This is from her analysis. I don't know how closely it aligns with your analysis, but we do our own independent analysis. Do you want me to actually list the schools?
Oh, sure. Just run down quickly.
Indiana Math and Science Academy North, Tinley Genesis, Bethel Park Elementary, Tinley Summit, Paul I. Miller School 114, Invent Learning Hub, Victory College Prep, Vision Academy, Anna Brockhausen School 88, Lewis B. Russell School 48, Ignite, Emma Donnan, and Brookside School 54.
Thank you very much. And then above that, where you say you're 20th out of 85 Indianapolis public schools, I'm assuming that means schools within IPS boundaries, not Indianapolis, Marion County.
Yeah, Bridget.
That's correct, Marianne.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is more of an open-ended question for the school. I see, if I was looking at the right information, that you have, I think, a couple of board members who are IPS central office employees. What is your relationship with IPS today, and what do you plan for it to be over the next year? Are you now, or are you intending to be an innovation charter school?
Great question. We have no relationship to IPS other than sharing a lot of the same kids and being in the same community. So certainly as a community partner, and if there's any discussions or things that impact us as being present in Center Township, we are there and with them and working in partnership. But we have no formalized partnership with IPS, and we currently have no formalized, or we have no intention currently to move into an innovation school.
Okay,
right
so
now,
you
we
won't
kinda
be
do the
applying
best-
during this year then?
Say one more time.
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Is there anyone else from the board who has a question or comment? Okay, we do have a recommendation for staff to move forward with the approval of the charter renewal. So that's on the table if we'd like to discuss.
I move that we accept the recommendation coming from the administration. Can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can hear you, Dr.
Good.
Calvin.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, let's go ahead and do a roll call vote then. Calvin,
Yes?
Rummel,
Yes.
Bootman,
Yes, I just, as I've said, I have some concerns about the level of learning loss that's occurring, and I think my admonition to all schools will be we need to dig in and not waste time. So yes.
okay. Ruger,
I'm a no, but I do want to give the caveat, just the explanation to the school. Because there has been so little data, or not data, but because there's been so few tested grades and so few state letter grades, if this were for, say, a 2-year renewal, I would absolutely be a yes. But I'm a no today.
okay, thank you. Bray,
Yes, approve.
and did Goff or Dumas join us? Okay, and then Kramer is a yes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses and 1 no. So the application for renewal is approved. Great, thank you very much and congratulations. Our second one, I believe, is Phelan. Is that correct? I'm sorry, I'm going down the.
Congratulations, Megan and Chad, if you're still on. Yeah, so the second one is Phelan, but I do want to say one thing. This is related to Gretchen's comment about the learning loss. Absolutely is a concern. It's impacted everyone across the state. I think, and the school leaders can probably talk about this a bit more. I believe that some of the federal funding, some of the federal CARES and ESSER funding is now available, meaning that I think some schools had started using the federal fund to address learning loss, but I think they're really ramping that up now. And maybe Nicole or someone from Phelan can actually address what they're using it for. But I know that a significant portion of that funding is supposed to be directly used for address learning loss. One other thing I will say is that now that we have BEA in the fold and we're fully staffed up, one of the things that we are doing, and this is, I should have said this before, regarding, eventually we're going to be out of this sort of pandemic, like learning loss position that we're in now. It's not going to be tomorrow, but one of the things that we are doing is Bea and Bridget have been starting to work specifically with all of our schools to put together, academic metrics that are sort of specifically designed to measure schools' performance in addressing, in part, learning loss. So, I think we recognize that there's an impact. We're going to try to provide as many supports as we can, but also try to ensure that we're working intentionally with schools to develop metrics so that, we can, I guess, acknowledge the fact that we've had this learning loss and what are you doing to address it and how is that working? So we're being, I guess, more intentional in our monitoring specific to address this question. I totally agree with you. Overall scores are not great. But I mean, the fact of the matter is, Megan, Circle City Prep's like the best elementary school in IPS, or one of them, right? So it just is what it is. And yeah, that's not great. So moving into Phelan with that in mind, this is an example, clearly, this is an actual example of why we don't feel like we can rely on the data, because yes, JRP, MS middle school's performance on iLearn was not great in 2021. I'm sure they'll discuss it. It was pretty low, and it was pretty low in relation to some of the other schools. But for example, when we look at their performance, they are a school for which we actually have data from the first time iLearn was given in 1819. And so if you look at that data, they were actually, I think they were number 1 in ELA or number 2 in ELA in comparable schools, and something like 6th in math in comparable schools. And it was 100% better. In other words, their scores were cut by 50% in 2021 versus 2018-19. So we look at those and say, okay, well, which one is the accurate JRPLA? Is it the ones that was pre-pandemic, or is it post-pandemic? And do we know what the effect is, et cetera, et cetera? So, I firmly believe that despite their scores, which I acknowledge are not great, that, the truth is maybe somewhere in the middle or maybe closer to 1819. And that, I can't in good conscience say, well, just because the scores in 2021 were low means that they won't get back to the 2018-19 or better level from an academic analysis. So we can obviously talk about that in more detail during questions, and I'm sure PLA will address them. I want to move on really quick to the other aspects of our recommendation, the ones that we actually, the evaluation categories for which we have ratings, which are financial, health, and organizational compliance. Organizational compliance, they met standard on every measure, so we have no concerns there. From a financial perspective, same thing. We have no concerns there. JRPLA middle school is a new school. Like as every new school, its performance is somewhat mixed. Tends to get better every year. Their performance on our financial metrics has improved. each year. The network, which is in many cases, and as we move into being, I guess, more intentional and specific about our accountability monitoring for networks, the network is performed very well. The historical performance has improved in the last 4 years. They've met all financial metrics. You can see from the recommendation the various financial numbers. One other thing I want to touch on is that one thing that they're doing over there with that PLA site is that they're really building a community. Not only did we've approved, and I mentioned this in the recommendation, that we approved the creation of a high school, a separate high school, and now have a middle school and a high school, but they also receive philanthropy to sort of renovate the building to get the high school ready. But they also built the PLA Arts and Cultural Center, which is located right next to the JRPLA site, and is not only a community center. It also is obviously available to the students, but it provides a performance space and a recording studio. So there's a community we're building over there, and we, given sort of those facts, and given the fact that we do not feel that we have a longitudinal data valid and reliable to make a judgment, high stakes decision, we're recommending a full approval for JRPLA Middle School. We obviously will continue to monitor and work with them on academics, and if at some point it becomes clear to us that the academics are not improving, then we'll take whatever steps are necessary to address those issues. So with that, I will let whoever is going to speak from PLA speak, and thank you.
Great.
Good morning.
Mr.
My name's
Phelan,
Nicole.
or I'm sorry, who's speaking?
It's Nicole. I didn't know if Earl would like me to go first, or Mr. Phelan. Do you want to start off? You want me to go ahead? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I will be brief because I'm sure that you've read all about us. This is our 5th year open on the far east side of Indianapolis. We started our first year with 120 middle schoolers. We are now at about 250 and holding steady with a campus that holds almost 700 now, middle/high school scholars. So we've had incredible growth every year. We're averaging about 87% staff retention every year and about 80% student retention as well. We have been able to be blessed enough with Mr. Phelan's philanthropy to add on to the building every year, make improvements, as James kind of highlighted. Him and Bridget and Miss Sherry got to see this year our new Cultural Arts Center, where we just had a performance, I believe it was 2 Saturdays ago, of the Abada Dance Company. So we're bringing local talent. We had a comedy show, a clean comedy show a few weeks ago, and the community's really able to enjoy this space. We've also put in a turf field, which confuses everyone who comes because it was a parking lot. Now we have some grass, if you want to call it grass, for the kids to play on. We've really worked to create a safe space in the community where we're currently the most dangerous zip code. And there's just not a lot over here. Lots of abandoned buildings, and Phelan continues to grow and build. We have an influx of ELL coming in, which I'm sure you guys have heard in other places, as well as a new French Creole population. So we have added positions in ESL as well as French translation this year to accommodate that group of residents on the Far East Side. We've also added a lot of robust programming and tried to be holistic about it. So to address the learning loss, which is real and very big in our area, we added a program for scholars called Reading Advantage that is scripted. The kids get to go to it every day as an additional reading class. And we've also added Mathnasium for our middle schoolers. So they're getting an additional block of reading and math every day. We also offer throughout the year for them art, music, gym, and theater. So we're trying to make sure that we address all areas, not just hitting them with academics and burning them out, but also giving them a chance to address the whole child. They are having a wonderful time and performing a Christmas program here in a little while that I'll be able to attend. We also have sports after school. So we have soccer, we have football, we have basketball, we have cheerleading, we have drama club, we have student council, and all of our after school activities for scholars are free to family. They don't have to purchase uniforms, shoes. I apologize for my voice. It is still leaving me because it's Thursday. I'm usually Fridays worse. We also are able to host events free to the community. So all the events we host, whether it be for sports or theater, there is no charge. We welcome everyone. We also have a CTE program now in our high school that our middle schoolers get to take advantage of. So it's a really nice way to start getting those middle schoolers, besides our standard college visits, to think about, if I'm not college bound, what's next for me. We've added a full cosmetology and barbering salon that's been approved by the state. So our kids are able to go in and get free services by their peers. And then some of them have already decided to matriculate with our offering of dual credit with Ivy Tech now. So we have 7th and 8th graders that are saying, I know I'm going into the CNA program to be a nurse. Well, let's take that a step further. We have dual credit. Maybe you want to go be an RN. Maybe you want to be a nurse practitioner. So we're constantly pushing everyone to do what is, in their heart to reach their full potential. We've had a great track record of getting our kids in the 21st Century Scholars Program. So our first 2 years, 100% of our scholars were in. The pandemic hit and we hovered right about 85, 90, hoping to be back up over 90 this year. But that is a program that we're taking full advantage of. So this year we're graduating our first class. So the scholars who started with us as 8th graders are now seniors. And I think I bragged to everyone who came. We have a wall of acceptance letters at this point to IU, Butler, Hanover, Kentucky State, University of Maryland, Central State. Incredibly proud of those kids and all the programming that we're doing. So the middle school, again, the learning loss has hit us and it's hit us hard, but I'm really confident with Mathnasium and Reading Advantage and the proven success they've had in other places and giving those kids a double dose of those academics that we're going to see gains this year.
Nicole, can you talk a little bit about the federal funding and how that's being used?
I'm going to defer that one to Mr. Phelan because I don't want to answer wrong.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. So we're using federal funds in a few different ways. One is to do the Reading Advantage program. That's as Nicole indicated. Second is to do Summer Advantage to make sure that scholars continue learning during the summer months in our evidence-based summer program. Third is the Mathnasium tutoring program is supporting that as well. Next year, well, not next year, but in January, a month from now, we're launching a principal in residence program. So that'll be an intensive, anywhere between 12 to 18-month experience so that we can really grow our principals in our model prior to them being placed in the leadership role. So we're very excited about having the principal in residence program, and we're expanding our professional development.
She's not going to come on here, is she?
We're going to have a new teacher institute this summer. So that'll be people who are new to PLA. They'll come for an extra week, and then our other staff members will go to the Teacher Institute, which is a week-long program, and then we're intensifying professional development for our school leaders. So current school leaders, not the principal and residents, which are future school leaders. So those are some of the ways that we're using our federal funds.
And I just want to, because you said this to me before when we were talking about this, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that these programs are meant to be temporary. So I think one of the concerns we have as an authorizer in terms of charter schools using federal funds is ensuring that they're not building operational capacity that they can't support when those funds go away. And, as when I talked to Earl about this, maybe 2 weeks ago or something, and he made it clear that the programs that they're using the funding for are temporary programs that will exist while the funding exists and then go away. So we're not going to be, they're not going to be 8 FTEs that they have to suddenly find money for that they were supporting using federal funds. So I just wanted to make that clear because it's something that we worry about as an authorizer, making sure that schools are mindful about, funding cliffs or temporary funding. So.
Did we have other comments from the academy?
No, sorry, that concludes our comments.
Okay. Just, yeah, sorry, I'm on Zoom. It's hard to read body language. And
Sure.
is there anybody else? So yeah, no one else. I see that Janet Rummel, you have a question from the board.
I do. Thank you. Great job. I mean, this is got to be so incredibly difficult over the past couple of years. So I just had a question about, I had looked online about, student behavior, suspensions, expulsions, that sort of thing. And so I couldn't find anything, since 2019, 2020, I think. So I just noticed that the out of school suspensions were higher than maybe your neighboring schools. And so I'm just curious, what those numbers are like now, and if, what you're doing about that.
Sure, Janet. I think that we saw a dip because when we were virtual, obviously people were not suspended. And learning loss is real, but also the social, emotional piece is real too. And when kids were home with no supervision for a very long time, a lot of us forgot how to do school. And so we are addressing that we have an additional Gallahue therapist. We also added a counselor on campus. So it seems to be going much better. I can tell you our hardest month here was August and September, and every month after has gotten better. It is just unbelievable how important school is to kids. And on Zoom, we missed a lot. And so the days of come in and get your book out, no, I'm tired because we're used to being up all night, or I'm not doing it today. It was real. And out of school suspension is always our last resort. But there are places where we draw the line. So it has to be a safe school. And if someone comes in and wants to fight or do something that harms everyone else, and out of school suspension is necessary, we do take those steps. But what I do like that we do at Phelan, and we do this in the entire region, is if someone is suspended, when they return, we have a parent meeting and we sit down and we come up with a plan for every single time someone is suspended. So how is this not going to happen again? And it really helps us build that relationship with parents. And that's almost where you learn those things like, this family needs medication and that's a luxury right now. So how can the school help them get that? This child is working at McDonald's till 2 o'clock every morning. So we've learned a lot and seen a lot as we've gone, and you would be shocked at how many of our kids were paying the bills for their families. And so when you're doing that and then you're asked to come back in and walk in a straight line and sit in your chair, it is difficult. So behavior has been a curve for us, but I feel like we're definitely trending in the right direction. Thanks for asking that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gretchen, do you have a question? That may be her hand up from the last time with the technical difficulties. Were there any other board comments or questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to commend both of you on the good work that you're doing, Earl, the good work you're doing across the entire Phelan network. I think your sense of urgency to serve those who are most vulnerable among us is really commendable. And I'm just really thankful for all that you're doing for the community.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. All right, if there are no other questions and comments, we have a recommendation from the board on the table to approve the charter renewal. Does anyone from the board?
I'll move that we accept the staff recommendation for a full renewal.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, great. All right, let's go through a voice vote then. Calvin? Could you repeat that, please? Is she on mute, maybe? Dr. Calvin, can you hear us?
Looks like she's muted.
Can
Dr.
you
Calvin?
hear me?
Yes.
A second?
Okay, we have we're voting now. So,
My vote is yes.
okay, thank you. Rummel,
Yes.
Gutman,
She's also muted.
on the phone, I think. Is that the
I
number
think
that ends in 17?
you can unmute her, right?
Muted. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I had some questions that did not get answered, so I'm going to choose not to vote.
Okay, I'm sorry
we
about
can-
that. We called on you and I didn't hear a response, so I apologize for that.
Because I was mute. Somehow I got everything muted.
Okay.
This is very frustrating. I'm very sorry.
Okay. Ruger?
No.
I would like to, is it possible for me to ask my questions, please?
I don't see why not. Does anybody have an
thank you.
objection? I think that's fine. Okay.
Thanks, Jill. So, James, I think this is a question for you and then maybe a question for the Academy. So the Academy was first opened in 2015, and it opened up as a middle school. You indicated that there has not been sufficient longitudinal data to determine its academic standards. So how long does a school have to be in existence in order for it to have sufficient academic, for us to be able to evaluate it from its academic standards?
I think that's a subjective question, honestly. I personally do not believe that 5 years is sufficient to fully give a school time to mature and show us what it's going to be. I've always had an issue with these really short charter terms. In this particular case, we have data from like 17-18 and 18-19. One was iStep, one was iLearn. Then we had a gap year. Then we had iLearn again in 2021. So, that to me, even if we had iLearn for 5 years, I guess I have issues. I mean, maybe you look at trends, but having two separate tests and a gap year means that there's just no way to truly measure how the school's been doing. You can't align iStep to iLearn, despite whatever the equipercentile concordance says, and you certainly can't align iLearn to iLearn with a gap year in the middle. I don't really know how to answer your question. I mean, I guess it really depends. But personally, I think you got to give a school, I don't know, 7 years, 10 years before you can really make a definitive statement about the data, the academic data. That's just my opinion.
These kids have already been disappointed by the academic experiences. And so I really do believe we have an obligation, a very important obligation, to be a lot more interested in helping these kids improve their academic learning. I appreciate the fact that we've gone through COVID. I appreciate the fact that it's been very challenging for schools, but these are kids that have already been disappointed by the educational system, or the educational system has forgotten about these kids. And I think I would ask the staff to think a little bit, be very intentional about this issue of what is a reasonable time period I think 3 years is a reasonable time period to begin to look at academic performance, gap year or not. So I will vote to support the school going forward, but I still will restate the same things that I said earlier, and that is schools need to get into the trenches. They need to make sure that these students we need to get serious about helping these kids reading at grade level and beyond, so that they can be successful. They can be successful in the academic environment. Thank you.
I don't know if you heard me before, Gretchen. I'm just going to really quickly respond. Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And we are being intentional moving forward with specifically addressing, or specifically at least acknowledging and working with schools to develop metrics. And, you know, three years, you're right. I mean, problem is we don't even have 3 years. And honestly, I do believe the gap year makes it completely impossible to measure longitudinal data. But, you know, by next year and the year after that, if we start to see trends, then yes, we absolutely will step in and absolutely will, you know, start to maybe put pressure on the school to explain why things aren't improving, if they aren't. I mean, obviously, I have faith that they will. And you know, the 2018-19 data shows it. In this case, at least the potential. So I totally appreciate what you're saying, and absolutely, we are being more intentional. And thankfully, we're now fully staffed, and we have the ability to actually do this. So just wanted to say that. Thank you, Gretchen.
Thank you for that important discussion. Okay, are there any other comments we wanted to? Okay, I'm going to go back to the voting and recap. I have Calvin as a yes and Rommel as a yes. You still good with that? Okay. Gretchen Gutman, would you like to vote or still abstain?
No, I'll vote yes. But as I said, I'm voting yes with a caveat that I expect next year to not have applications come before us that say we're unable to evaluate the academic success. I think there are ways in which you can, and we need to get serious about this.
Okay. Yes, that's a really good point. Ruger?
I'm a no. I continue to have governance concerns with only 4 public meetings a year. And I also continue to have concerns with the relatively low percentage of students with disabilities that this school serves as compared to the other list of middle schools. In many cases, they only serve half the percentage. So I'm a no today.
Okay, thank you. Bray?
Yes.
All right, and did Dumas join us yet? Okay, and Kramer is a yes. So we have 5 yeses and 1 no. So your renewal is approved. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congrats, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're
Happy
going
holidays.
to move in to the next 3 on the agenda. We have Excel Center Hammond, Excel Center Clarksville, and Excel Center Anderson. And I will facilitate the conversation according to our Robert's Rules of Orders, but I will recuse myself from the vote for a conflict. So I just want to put that on the record there. So James, do you want to start the conversation?
Sure. So we're starting with Excel Center Hammond, which is Goodwill Leeds. This is northern Indiana, Goodwill of Michiana, I believe. So Excel Center Hammond, we are recommending approval for a 5-year renewal for Excel Center Hammond. And the reason for the 5-year renewal approval is somewhat related to sort of financial concerns. Going through the recommendation, you can see we don't have any concerns with regards to their academic success. You can see the statistics there and in the appendix for the adult high schools in terms of their performance, in terms of number of graduates with a Core 40 diploma, 91% of graduates earning college credits. They've met or exceeded the standards on most, if not, I think 4 out of 5 measures of academic success for our accountability system. They earned a B grade on the state accountability system. You can see they're taking steps to increase their ability to provide, certifications and working with Ivy Tech and things like that. The financial health. So this is sort of begs the discussion about network schools and network involvement. We have a number of networks, and the networks provide support to schools in different ways. And in particular with Goodwill, and I believe I saw Debbie on here, this is mission for them, for Excel. And this is both Goodwill Leads and Goodwill Education Initiatives. What they're doing with the adult high schools is part of their mission. It's an integral part of their mission. And so when we look at sort of financial metrics, at the school level and at the network level, obviously, as you look at the recommendation, the financial performance of Goodwill Hammond has not been great. Of Excel Hammond has not been great. It is, the reason that it's continuing is because of the support that the parent organization is providing the school. Now, as an authorizer, we obviously want to see our schools become sustainable, right? That's the goal, is that they're sustainable on recurring funding, on tuition support and other grants and things like that. But we also recognize that that can't be a bright line. And we can't discount the fact that Excel Center is doing, the Excel Centers take on students that they're not getting paid for, right? Part of mission. And the other, they can talk about that when they have an opportunity to speak. And so while we have concerns about Hammond and all of this, when you have the president and CEO of the parent organization saying that this is a part of our mission and we're going to continue to support it, that to me is somewhat sufficient now, right? It's been 5 years. Maybe in 3-4 years, if they're still having financial issues, if they're still negative, it's still negatively impacting the network, then maybe we have another conversation. But, do we hope that enrollment gets up and that they become, fully sustainable? Yes, absolutely. But, when you can't really compare them, say, to Goodwill Education Initiatives, they've been around for I don't know how many years. And, South Bend I think their first school had its renewal last year, I believe. So, we're talking year 6 for this entire network. So that is our only caveat, that, their application acknowledges, and it's true that right now Hammond is dependent on ongoing financial support from the parent. And we're going to continue to monitor this. And if, I have to believe that Goodwill, if it becomes untenable for them, they will let us know. I mean, this isn't a case where the school is going to suddenly run out of money and close in the middle of the year. This is a case where Goodwill will subsidize the school until it is no longer mission, or they determine that it's no longer feasible for them to subsidize the school, and they'll close it. So in this because we have no other concerns with the school, we're recommending renewal, and we'll work with the network and hopefully get the school to where it's sustainable. And if not, make sure that we're talking to them about, if the school looks like it's not going to become feasible anymore, that we'll wind it down in a responsible manner. So with that, I will turn it over to Goodwill Leads representatives. Again, I just want to emphasize, we have no issues with the academic performance of the school, what the school's doing academically, and we have no issues with their organizational compliance. Merely this caveat about the subsidization, which is something we can't really measure. So with that.
All right, thank you. So I'm Deb Coble. I'm the president and CEO of Goodwill Industries of Michiana. And so I guess that kind of makes me Mama Coble of the Excel Centers as well. And so just a little bit of my background. I've actually been with Goodwill for 32 years and have now been serving as the president for 8 years. So I'm not going anywhere. And my first board meeting as the president and CEO, I brought the concept of the Excel Centers to my board. And I don't think it took them 5 minutes to make the decision to say, yes, this is what we want to do. And this is what we're going to do. When we open a new school, we automatically gift them $200,000 to get them started. And then, as you see, one of the issues is the loan with the Hammond School, and that is a loan to Goodwill. So we have, we work with the school to make that payment, and so there's not a bank involved in that. So as far as their financial security, and I'm kind of just jumping ahead to get to this point in time, since this is kind of the bigger concern. Academically, we are doing well. So just some things that you need to know, and this was in the addendum, but since we did submit this application, our vice president of the Excel Center has resigned. And so right now the directors are reporting to me directly. And so my involvement is very, very high. As we have started the search, one of the things that we are looking and putting very much on top of it is we're looking for somebody who has managed multiple sites, as well as understands this whole recruiting concept of students. We have found, and I think a lot of the Excel centers across the nation has experienced this year, we just saw a lot of folks that are just weary. They are weary from the pandemic. They have kids that are e-learning or in school, out of school, and that affects our parents very much so. And so we've been working with them. One of the other things that we are in the process of doing is we're going to be hiring a recruiter. And that position is solely devoted to helping to get students back into the door. And so we recognize that this is an issue. Each week, each of the directors report to me what their student count is. And so I'm very much on top of that and where we need to be. It is part of the strategic vision for the Excel centers to get our numbers up and to be urgent about that. One of the things that has affected our numbers is the fact that where we do a lot of our recruiting, and this isn't to blame the pandemic, but it is reality, those events haven't happened for 2 years. And so where we are actually in the neighborhoods, one of the things that we started in South Bend and we're going to be looking to bring to Lake County this summer in 2022 is actually called Goodwill on the Go, where we actually bring Goodwill services, and there's a ton of them, to a community where people are underserved, and Excel centers will be a part of that. We saw when we did it in South Bend this summer, we had 14 applications one time of people coming in. So we really believe this is going to be a way to continue to encourage students to come and to get enrolled in it. And so again, James mentioned that we've hired a director of career and technical education to include and add to our list of credentials that our students can get. One of the things that I'm really excited, we just had graduation last week where we had 11 graduates. Louis Gonzalez, who oversees Ivy Tech Northwest Indiana, Ivy Tech gives all of our graduates a 3-credit scholarship. Louis doubled that for our students in Hammond and in Gary, that if they get through the first one and they pass, he will give them another scholarship to keep moving forward. So that was pretty exciting. Our board remains stable, stable leadership at our schools. That's not an issue at all. And again, Goodwill is very committed to the success of Hammond, and there has been absolutely no discussion about closing the doors. I just want to reassure you of that. So David, what do you want to add to that? David is our director of Hammond.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us today. I do want to say, even with COVID, last year's graduating numbers, we had 49 graduates. That's the highest amount of graduates we have since we had opened our doors. Last February's count day actually was the highest number of students we had enrolled at 255. And since I've been here, this past fall, and, like I said, I don't like to blame COVID, but those things caught up to us. This was the first year that we actually had an enrollment under 220. So I know we're going to bounce back. We've been consistent in our enrollment. I know we'll get back there as well. But I just want to tout some of the other things we do. We do offer free childcare to all our students, and that is free of charge. And it's not just a drop-in center. They run with the high scope curriculum. They're teaching and working with the kids. Our hope is that when they're 18, 20, 25-year-old, we don't see them back in our doors again. So they do a phenomenal job with that. I've got a staff who absolutely buys into our mission and what we're doing. All of our students come to us with some kind of an obstacle. We have some that are homeless, some that are out of work, some single parent families. So each person is unique and each obstacle is unique, but we give them hope. We give them a place that they feel comfortable coming to every day. I do have a great relationship with the local public schools, the School City of Hammond and the School City of East Chicago. They invite us into their schools to actually talk to their seniors that they know who won't be graduating. We get a lot of their students, and so we appreciate that. I expect that to continue far into the future. So just thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak a little bit about us.
And James, last, Carmen Ashar, CFO, is on also, so maybe she can add a little bit to what I said on the finances.
Sure, sure. Carmen Ash, the CFO, I'm the CFO here at Goodwill, and I also assist with oversight with our finance manager for the Excel centers. So a couple of things that I just want to comment on the budget and things like that. So as we do show a loss in the first year, but we've just started recently a cost savings initiative that we started with our VP of Excel centers right before she resigned. So as we get into working with Debbie, and then as the replacement of that, we're going to continue that initiative. And Dave has been really open about looking at some of those things. There are not a lot of concerns from my perspective. The Goodwill financial statements are very strong. And since I've been here for the 18 months that I've been here, I've never once heard anything, but we have a lot of support for all of the Excel centers financially and just mission wise. So we're looking at different opportunities to really make sure that the finances of the schools get to a point where they do remain strong. I think there's some opportunities there for us to do things a little bit differently or a little more efficiently, and then we'll be able to reduce some of the costs that are related to that. So, if anybody has any questions on anything, I'm happy to answer that. But I think from my perspective, I don't have any concerns with the schools other than trying to get the student enrollment up. Debbie's already addressed that, and then looking to find some cost savings initiatives.
Very good. Is there any other comment from Excel Center?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then do we have any board questions or comments?
This is Gretchen. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So, James, this is really kind of a question more for you. You indicate that the staff recommendation is only for 5 years for Excel Center, and your primary concern is because it's a system school and it's receiving financial support from its parent company. However, they have, even though they've only been around, their opening year was 2017-18, you indicate that they have met their academic success, which I'm not sure why we can evaluate Goodwill on academic success, but we couldn't evaluate the Phelan Academy, but that's beside the point. I'm not exactly sure why we're limiting the Excel program to only 5 years when we know that this is a system school. So I guess I'm asking for more clarification from staff as to why that recommendation should be applied.
So to be honest with you, I would be fine with them having a 7-year renewal. And as I've said this in many times, to me, in some ways, the length of a charter contract is not, I guess it's somewhat material, but it really isn't material because we as staff and you as a board have the ability to close a school at any time or take any sort of corrective action that we need to take if a school is sort of formally put on a corrective action plan. I'm happy to approve them for a 7-year renewal. I actually, it was my decision to say 5 years simply because of the financial concerns, but in reality, it doesn't matter. I'd be happy to change it to 7 years, because if there are financial concerns, we will deal with them in the same way that we would deal with anything that came up during a school's charter term that required intervention. With regards to the academic data, Bridget, do you mind? Can you explain a little bit why it's different between the K-12 and the adult high schools?
Absolutely. So Gretchen, those are great questions, and I appreciate those questions. With the adult high schools, as you know, we look more at their college and career readiness indicators and their graduation rates, not so much from the required state and federal rate within the cohort, but from how they're performing with the students that enroll and then graduate within their programs. And just within those specific indicators that we have with the adult high school framework, it's a little different than the K-12 accountability framework. So we're able to have more actionable data from the adult high schools versus the K-12, because we don't actually lend as much credibility per se on iLearn or iStep and that longevity that we do with the adult high schools. But I do appreciate that question, because I think it's important to clarify.
Although there is no doubt that there is an impact of the pandemic on their academic performance, right? It manifests in a different sort of data point. But because, from adult high schools, the comparability is different. I mean, you compare adult high schools to other adult high schools. I mean, because it's apples to oranges to compare them to K-12 schools. So we look at, their core, as Bridget said, the dual credit certifications and graduation, but it's sort of within that smaller subset of adult high schools in terms of how they're performing. So, our current adult accountability metric is essentially, and not totally, but in large part based on the state adult accountability system. And we're always looking to revise those things to be more accurate measures. But under our current accountability system, we just have more data points for adult high schools.
Right, but some of the data points that you're using for your adult high schools are data points that could be applied to other schools as well. I mean, we're all trying.
Other high schools maybe, but we don't have any high schools up for renewal right now.
Okay, fine. But I would encourage a revision in the staff's recommendation to not just limit them to 5 years, because you indicate in your overall rating that they meet the standard for financial health, but yet, and it's a system school. And to your excellent point, James, if all of a sudden any school were to begin to be challenged, you and staff could immediately step in. And as I said, we've approved system schools, and a part of system schools is that there may be money that gets moved around to support schools that are maybe not meeting the mark. So that I would propose that we not accept staff recommendation of 5 years, but actually give them a full 7 years.
I fully support that change.
So we consider that a motion?
Right. I'm sorry, Jill, I apologize. It may not have been the right time to make that statement. So
I think it's okay. I think if we move and second that, then we can have discussion on that motion. So Gretchen, if you would like to move that we accept the recommendation from staff to renew the charter, but with the amendment that it is for 7 years instead of 5 years, that would be the motion that we would second.
Okay.
And then we would have an opportunity to have discussion about that.
Okay, then I will move that the board accepts the staff recommendation for a renewal of the charter. I would amend the staff recommendation that of the renewal staff, the renewal being for 5 years. I would propose that the renewal would be for 7 years, a 7-year renewal.
Okay. Is there a second from the board on this motion?
I second.
Okay, Virginia Calvin, Dr. Calvin is second. It provided a second to that motion. Does the board want to discuss the motion then? And that can include any other questions you might have. Okay, seeing no hands and hearing nothing, I'm not hearing any comments, so I'm going to go to a vote then. Okay, Calvin. Oh, Calvin. I think we can't hear her again.
Yes.
Okay. Rummel.
Yes.
Gutman.
Yes.
Ruger. I think she unmute. No. Marianne, are you there? Bray.
Yes.
And then Dumas, did you join? And then I'm recusing myself from the vote. So do I count as one of the 5 to have a quorum? If Marianne's not here? I can't.
Yeah, we have a
James,
quorum. You're fine.
Okay, so I'm not sure how to
It would be
call this.
4 to, I think it would be 4-0.
4 yes, 1 recusal.
Yeah, 1 recusal, right?
Okay, so congratulations, Hammond. You are approved for 7 years, as long as you don't have an objection to that.
Thank you.
Thank you
guys.
so very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you. I do want to call a point of order, James. We've been on for an hour and a half. We're halfway through. Does anyone want to take, I know this will just delay everybody else being here, but does anyone want to take a 5 or 10 minute quick break?
I was going to say I need at least 2 minutes because I got to go put money in the meter or I'm going to get a ticket.
Okay, let's come back at, we'll do 8 minutes, 1:10. Is that good? All right, so we'll see you back here at 1:10. Thank you.
That was fast, James. You put more money in, that was pretty fast.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's just outside. It was basically 15 dimes.
This is a very efficient group coming back. I don't know if I've ever been on a meeting that people have come back so well. So I'm going to try to see which board members we have back. See Beth Bray, Janet Rummel, Virginia Calvin. Gretchen, can you hear us? Are you back?
Yes.
Okay. And then myself. And I think we expected to lose Marianne, did we, halfway through or partway through?
She'll be calling back in.
Okay.
She's having phone connection problems due to the weather.
Okay. Yes, I'm getting the same sort of unstable, but I haven't been kicked off yet, so we'll just,
Moving.
yes. So does Marianne know we're coming back at 1:10? Okay. Okay. I think she'll be calling back in, but just in the interest of time, it's 1:11. So James, would you like to start the discussion around the Clarksville site?
Yes.
Please? Okay.
The next school up for renewal is the Excel Center Clarksville, which staff recommendation is to approve for a full 7-year renewal. They meet all standards on our summary evaluation categories. Again, as you can see on the appendix, the adult high school appendix, and during the academic success discussion, they've awarded, you know, 250 core 40 diplomas. They averaged 61 graduates, you know, with 97% college and career readiness, or sorry, core 40 attainment rate of 97%, a CCR rate of 90%, which is, they performed very well on our the academic leg of our accountability system. Organizationally, again, we have no concerns, and this is going to apply to Anderson as well. We have no concerns about their organizational and operational compliance. Both Anderson and Clarksville will meet standard, have met standard on all of our metrics. You know, the network it's very easy to work with. We have a great partnership with them, and we've been working with them for years. The financial health, this is sort of another system network question or discussion where the school itself has had some inconsistent financial, I guess, performance on our financial metrics. But the reason can be directly tied to unexpectedly high renovation costs for the building. And so I think right now, and they're here and they can describe in more detail what that specifically means for the school. But other than this one blip, this one cost that was unexpected, their sort of budget projections, their enrollment, they're projecting to be, if not positive, at least, you know, zeroed out, you know, by the end of the next charter term or sometime during the next charter term. And again, they can give you more details on that. And, you know, this goes to sort of the way that the network is not subsidizing, I guess, sort of loaning money within the network, which of course they can do. And generally speaking, they've been doing this since the beginning. And you know, usually it works out because when they are transferring money back and forth, the money gets paid back and everything. This has been sort of an unusual situation because of the size of the blip, but we don't have any concerns. We have full faith that they will resolve this and that Clarksville will and is on the path to sustainability financially. So with that, I will turn it over to the Excel folks, and they can maybe fill in some of those gaps, but we are strongly recommending approval of renewal.
Thanks, James. So my name is Betsy Delgado, and I'm the Chief Mission and Education Officer for Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana. I'm going to go ahead and introduce the group of folks that we have on the call first to answer questions, and then second team will be the team that will be presenting today, and the leaders directly engage with the operations of the Excel Center. So first, just Jay, do you want to introduce yourself? You might be out of, I'm looking at exclamation points. So we've got, I'll go ahead and tell you who's on just because of the connectivity. We have Jay Oliver, our board chair, Dan Riley, our chief financial officer, Lynn Greggs, our senior director of financial operations, and they're all here to answer questions. Dan, I see you on right now. And then for our presentation today, Corey, do you want to raise your hand and say hi and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Corey Emery, one of 2 regional directors for the Excel Center Network.
And then Corinne is on with you. Corinne, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Corinne Lorenzini. I'm the director at the Excel Center Clarksville.
I will not introduce everybody again when we do Anderson, but I will introduce our Anderson director when we get to Anderson. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Corey and Corinne to talk about the Excel Center, Clarksville.
Kathy, and thanks to all of you. Yeah, I just want to cover at 30,000 feet. The mission of the Excel Center is to provide adults the opportunity and support to earn a high school diploma while also pursuing post-secondary paths, whether that be industry recognized certifications or college credits. We hope to change the trajectory and the economic opportunity of the communities, the families, the individuals we serve. And this is in line with Goodwill's mission of providing people with that training to be on the road to economic self-sufficiency. And so since opening the Excel Center in 2010, we have grown to 18 locations across central and southern Indiana. And as of last spring, we've graduated over 6,200 students who previously left high school to earn a diploma and graduate. In the most recent year, 98% of all of our graduates, despite a pandemic, had either earned college credits or an industry recognized certification, and many earning both. And also, since opening in, the first Excel Center at our Michigan Street location 11 years ago, we've achieved an A or B rating across all of our schools in that Indiana Adult High School Accountability System. Speaking very specifically to Clarksville, this location opened in 2017, and we quickly learned we would not only be serving the city limits of Clarksville, but also New Albany, Floyd, Silver Creek, and have several relationships across the high schools across the area down here. I also want to recognize the school leadership team, Jesse Estes, our teacher of record, Danielle Tracy, our lead coach, Claire Coppage, our lead teacher, and Gloria Alvarado, our manager of office administration, and the staff here. Without their hard work every single day, and Deborah Wesley, our CCR specialist. I'm sitting in her office. I'm not sure how I missed her. Without this team and the work they do and the leadership they provide every day, the outcomes we just described and what we put in the packet would not be possible. So I'm going to hand it over to Corinne to talk very specifically about her school down here in Clarksville.
Thank you. It is a great opportunity to be able to speak and be able to give information out about our school, and also to talk about that dream team that the small list Corey did share. This has been a dream team from the beginning. And just as of last week, we celebrated a total of 270 Hoosiers who have previously earned their high school diploma. It was a great celebration last week. Another piece that we're really proud of is that what James already spoke to is our college career readiness rate. That's been a strong indicator of our graduate quality. That's a big piece to what we do, is making sure that students really have that next step brought to their feet, and then standing next to them and being a part of that journey as they're embarking those next steps. We actually have a motto here that we have a big sign in our hallway that says, "Welcome to the Excel Center where all dreams come," and then everyone yells, "True." And so that is something that we really want to make sure that we're supporting those students and whatever that next step is of that journey. The other piece that we really value is the partnerships that we have within our community. One example of those is the Prosser Career Center in New Albany. Through that partnership, we have been aligning adult classes, working connected with some of their CTE programs, but specifically adult programs in the evening. And so that continues to grow and change. As you guys imagine, through COVID, a lot of things have changed with instructors availability. And so we continue to do that, work closely with Dr. Kyle Lanou at the Prosser Career Center. We're able to meet those needs across our communities as well. In addition, beyond academics, we have really strived in having mental health be a big part of our work for a long time. The Excel Center Network in 2018, as a staff, we were trained in trauma-informed care, and we transitioned that into resiliency work in 2019. And so we continue to have that work within the classroom, outside the classroom, within offices, with each other as staff members. And so we're continuing to do professional developments on that. And actually, for this year's theme for us as a staff and professional developments, we have it linked to what we're calling human connection. That's us connecting emotions with each other, with students, and communicating with each other, especially with what the last 18 months have been for our students and their families. And we hope that this work in mental health will continue to be work that they'll do at home and continue that 2-generational impact with their families and little ones at home. So thank you for the time. And we really appreciate the time that you guys have given us today.
Thank you, Corinne. Just to clarify, the relationship with the Prosser facility and programs is to enhance our certifications. Is that correct, you guys? Yep. And then when COVID hit, we did a survey of needs assessment immediately. And one of them, in fact, the top response that we got was the need for mental health support. And so we've developed over the last year and a half a very strong relationship with Aspire in particular, but multiple mental health professionals to make sure that we are bringing that support into our schools. So I wanted to kind of expand on that answer, but just wanted to really thank you all for hearing us. I think the work that you guys do is always important. And in this moment in time when educators are tired and students need us more than ever, your work is particularly important and profound. So we are happy to take any questions that you might have.
Sorry, I'm getting the unstable message, so I'm off video, but does the board have any questions they would like to ask?
I've got one question. It's just a general question about Goodwill Centers in general, not just yours. Can you tell us more about how you recruit? I know it seems like your model, kind of depends upon a supply of students coming in at all times during the year. And even outside of COVID, I know that can be difficult. How do you encourage people once they know about you? How do you encourage them to actually sign up? And then how does your compensation tie into that, if it does at all?
Yeah, our compensation doesn't tie into that at all. I think our strong. Sorry.
I'm glad to hear that. Good.
Yeah. Okay. So I think our students, as schools mature, and Corey and I think Corinne will probably echo this, our students are our best referral source. Once they have had the experience of the Excel Center and built relationships with our coaches and our teachers and leaders like Corinne and Miriam and Corey, they go out into their communities and they speak very highly of us and bring people in. They are our greatest recruiting source. We also use traditional methods. It has been a little harder with COVID because we tend to go to, fairs, and we're in, food banks and those kinds of things. And with the limited access, that has been more of a challenge. Having said that, we still recruited 97% of our number goal. So although we didn't hit last year, we were actually beyond 100%. This year, I still feel like this team did a really good job with recruitment and getting students in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do we have other board questions or comments? Okay, we have a recommendation from the staff to approve the Excel Center Clarksville's charter renewal application request for a 7-year period before us.
So moved.
Somebody else needs to. Okay, you're moving. So Beth is moving the recommendation.
Right.
Second.
Okay, sorry. And Dr. Calvin is providing a second. So we will go ahead and vote then. Calvin?
Aye. Yes.
Rummel?
Yes.
Gutman?
Yes.
Ruger?
No.
Bray?
Yes.
Okay, and I am recusing myself. So it is the request is approved with a vote of 4-1, 1 recusal. So congratulations to the team.
Don't go anywhere.
Right, move
We're doing
to
you
now
again.
Excel Center Anderson. So
So
James?
this is a seminal moment in ICSB history. This is our second renewal school. So Anderson was opened in 2012, 2013. Was renewed for 5 years in 2017, and now they're up for number 2. So we are recommending a full 7-year renewal approval for Excel Anderson. Again, you can look at the data. They've awarded over 500 Core 40 diplomas. They serve a very high percentage of economically disadvantaged students. Average 64 graduates a year, Core 40 attainment rate, I believe of around 90%, college and career readiness rate of 95%. You know, have performed well on all of our academic metrics, has earned an A on the Indiana's adult accountability system in each year that it's been calculated. And, you know, they work with Ivy Tech and the local school districts, excuse me, like most Excel centers. You know, they've always been very financially stable. Have no concerns there whatsoever. You know, again, we monitor both school and network finances to you know, account for stability, to check for stability. So, you know, we are not surprised by any thing, but we have no concerns with Anderson there. And as I said before, we also have no concerns on organizational compliance. So with that, we would again recommend approval for the second time of the renewal of Excel Anderson for 7 years. And I'll turn it back over to Betsy.
Thank you, James. We are really proud to be here and part of this historic moment as well. And so what I'm going to do is, I think, you know, Jay, I think Jay might be live now, and I just want to have him introduce himself.
Good afternoon. I'm Jay Oliver. I'm the board chair of GEI and Goodwill Excel Centers.
Thank you, Jay. And then everybody else is consistent, but Jay is also available to answer questions if needed. And we'll go ahead. I know, Corey, you're going to be repeating yourself a little bit, but I think that's okay, just to put on record for the Excel Center Anderson. And so I'm going to pass this over to Corey and Miriam, Director Miriam Henry. You want to wave your hand of the Excel Center? Miriam will talk about herself, but I'm going to brag her up a little bit. She was there from the beginning, came to us as a math teacher at the Excel Center. So this is her second renewal there as well. First time as the director, I believe. So Corey and Miriam, I'm going to pass it over to the two of you.
Thank you, Betsy, and thanks again to all of you. Like I said before, with our Excel Center Clarksville, the Excel Center exists to provide adults the opportunity to earn a high school diploma while also preparing for that life after graduation through workplace certifications or college credits earned prior to graduation. And the Anderson location was our first location outside of Marion County. It was our first sort of foray outside of 465. And ever since then, along with all the other schools across our 11 years, we've been either an A or B in the adult high school accountability system since that time. And Anderson is, like I said, the first one outside of Marion County, but just another example of Goodwill's mission of, I lost my train of thought, of Goodwill's mission of helping folks to self-sufficiency through education, employment. And so Anderson specifically has graduated over 570 adults in their 10 years, almost 10 years being open, and they have supported folks not only in the city of Anderson, but across Madison County. And like I did before for Clarksville, just want to recognize the school's leadership team alongside Miriam Henry and Stu Ernie, their CCR specialist, Melissa Green, their lead coach, Kelly Barker, their lead teacher, Laura Shaw, their manager of office administration, and their teacher of record, Jack Alvarado. And with that, I hand it over to Miss Miriam.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to come. It's exciting for me because this is the second time I've been through renewal, and also a proud moment of being one of the remaining OG staff members from Anderson has been really, really cool. So really proud of our high school graduation rate throughout the years, but most recently we had a high school graduation rate of 93% and 108% the last 2 years respectively. And then also we really pride ourselves on college and career readiness, as Corinne was saying, and Corey. That's one of the things we want to make sure we're doing, especially in Madison County, where the demographic that we serve typically doesn't leave Madison County. And so we want to make sure that we are preparing them for life in their own community, whether that's a certification or whether that's on to college credits. And so last year, our CCR rate was 98%. And then our average over the last 9 years has been 93% of our graduates. We also have really strong community partners with Ivy Tech, especially in Anderson. But then also we work very closely with the local community schools. We're on a very good relationship basis with them, a partnership for receiving some of their students who maybe need a different and alternative option for them. And then we also are connected with community partners. We have a strong presence in Madison County with United Way. We work really closely with them to refer our students to a lot of their resources that they offer. We also have a connection with JobSource, which is kind of a pipeline for certifications and apprenticeships for trade schools and those kinds of programs. And so those are just a few of our community partners that we have really strong relationships with. I also want to recognize that Ivy Tech has in recent years created a model of 8-week courses that kind of very much align with the Excel Center calendars, and that's across the state, which has been incredibly helpful for us when we don't offer, for example, in Anderson, a welding certification. And so our students attend Ivy Tech for their welding certification, and then have already got their foot in the door for welding and for Ivy Tech. And so it's a really good partnership, and Ivy Tech continues to ask us what we need and how can they better support our students. And so we're really excited about that partnership there in Anderson specifically. Again, just thank you for letting us come before you for a renewal for 7 years. We're excited about the opportunity, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Miriam. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't say, you know, we made a very intentional decision to be in person when everybody was debating over the summer, because we were the first ones to open back up this summer. And I've got to brag on these two schools, but Anderson and Clarksville, they doubled their grads from last year by doing that in-person, work. And they also increased our credits by the thousands in earned, because we really knew our families needed to be with us, with those relationships in the space, utilizing the resources that we provide, not only academically, but also, surrounding and wrapping around them. And I too would just like to say, we're really proud to be part of the Indiana Charter School Board's portfolio, and we are ready to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you so much, Betsy and team. Janet, I see you have a question.
Comment. I did notice that the enrollment looks like it's way down, like 16% less than last year. At least on what James provided to us, it says 255 is the current enrollment versus, last year, 303. So I'm just wondering, the other, we heard from like Clarksville and Hammond what's being done to address enrollment decline, but I didn't see anything about Anderson. So I'm just curious about the, first of all, I guess the financial implication of, that loss in enrollment, 'cause that's kind of a big jump, like 48 students, I think. And then what are we gonna do to bring it back up?
Corey and Miriam, you guys want to take that?
I think, Janet, to your second question, I think part of the work is reconnecting back into the community with partners. Our communities have changed pretty dramatically, and the people we were working with just a year or two ago are completely different if the organizations are still here. And so, as Betsy talked about in Clarksville's conversation, students are our best recruiters. We typically get those connections throughout. And anytime we do that sort of survey to see, how did you hear about us? Word of mouth. If it's not a direct student referral, word of mouth comes shortly after. And so our approach, and it's gaining ground again, it's just we're coming off of the summer, is to get back into every one of those community spaces across apartment complexes, daycares, barbershops, early childhood programs, and high schools, just to let them know what we offer and how we will provide that. As to the fall count this year, we were at 283 or 282, just short of the enrollment goal. So financially, we are on solid footing for the school year. And then there's an ebb and flow as, you know, the life work balance that comes to our students when they add school into the mix is what you're seeing when you saw 250. So it's a great question, though, Janet.
Yeah, and I would say the other thing is if you look at us historically, we do, if we are ever below count, we tend to make it up in February. And so we're doing a lot of recruiting right now to get people re-engaged. I think, yeah, it's just what was real and true in enrollment, you know, 3 years ago is just so different now. And so we're trying to get creative on making sure that people have access.
Thank you, Janet. Did any other board members have questions or comments? Okay, we have a recommendation from the staff to approve the renewal application from Excel Centers Anderson for a 7-year period.
So move.
Second.
Accept the recommendation.
And that was Gretchen who provided the second, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? All right, we'll go through a vote then. Calvin?
Yes.
Rummel?
Yes.
Gutman?
Yes.
Ruger?
No.
Bray?
Yes.
Okay, and Kramer, I recuse myself. So with a vote of 4-1, your 7-year application renewal is approved. So congratulations to Excel Anderson. All right.
Thank you all so much.
Congratulations,
we really appreciate
everyone.
your support.
So
thanks, everyone.
I believe this concludes the board business portion of the meeting. And James, the agenda says no staff updates. Is that correct? Okay. Do you have closing remarks that you would like to make?
Thank you, everyone, for this is a long process. It's a worthwhile process for the discussions. I think the board and the staff are very much aligned on, as we come out of this pandemic, the importance of learning loss recovery and carefully monitoring academic data and not, as Gretchen said, continually saying we don't have enough data to make a decision. I mean, even though we don't feel comfortable making assigning a summative, rating for their academic performance, as you know, we still included it in all of our recommendations. Like the data we do have, we are looking at, we are recognizing it, we are recognizing that we have to improve it in many cases. And so we hope that we can work with our schools to show that improvement in the coming years. If things go back to normal, let's keep our fingers crossed, right? It's been a rough 2 years for everyone, but for the schools most of all, and the kids in them. So those are my closing remarks. Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. So I would just like to say thank you to our board members, especially the new ones this year who joined us during virtual and pandemic times.
Yeah.
I'd like to especially thank the staff for all of your hard work this year. I think there was a lot more on your plate, than normal, and we recognize that and acknowledge that. I want to thank you all for bearing with me. I'm the vice chair, and you've been stuck with me all year chairing these meetings, so I appreciate your patience with me and just our collegiality, and really this group has really great questions, really great discussion, and I can tell that everyone has a passion for education and our students and teachers throughout the state. So
I do have one more thing, if I can.
Okay.
Just as an update, I have been bugging the governor's office to fill that 9th seat. There was some turnover there, and there's a new individual. And so hopefully we'll see some movement on that, because it's been empty for 2 years, I guess. So we'll see about that. And then the last thing is I want you all to enjoy how the brevity of this renewal meeting, because next year we have 12 schools. So get your lazy boys out, and that's going to be a long one.
Okay, and then James, if you and your staff, could you just give us a reminder, an idea of what our next meeting might be, what that timing might be, and what?
Bridget?
Absolutely. We will continue with the 2 application cycles and the renewal. As of right now, we are actually looking towards the end of April for an application cycle. And we will send out more details to the board after the holidays and when we come back in January.
Okay. Is it possible that we could get the 2 application cycle meetings and the renewal meetings on the calendar for the year? And if we don't need them, we can pull them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, that would be helpful to everyone for planning purposes if we can just plan out 2022.
Okay.
So that may be my last act of serving as your interim chair, but I'm going to put that out there and request that.
Yeah, we'll send out that information, and you know, we kind of keep waiting on the public health emergency and what all's transpiring with that and what will happen with the General Assembly. So that too is kind of prolonged our official process, but yeah.
Let's just put them on the calendar, assuming that they'll be in person then. And then like this time we pulled it back. I think it's better to assume that there's more time that we need. And how many people do we need in person then? Everyone or?
I'll have to check. I'll have to check. Is it 2? I can't remember.
Okay, if you could put that in the
I'll let you
information
know.
too.
I'll let you know. But there is still the opportunity for individuals to participate electronically, even if we're in a in-person meeting. So hopefully we can keep Dr. Calvin around for another 10 years.
Exactly.
So I'm going to give her as many accommodations as she wants. If we have to go to her house for the meeting, we're going to do that. So no, I'm kidding. But anyway, yeah, we'll get all that information out. But yeah, I think we need to assume that everything from now on is going to be in person.
Okay, great.
Holidays to everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays, everyone.
All right, thank you so much. Bye.
Wait,
Thank you, everyone. Oh wait, we have to vote to adjourn.
Yeah, I just.
So moved.
Second. A second.
There's a second.
All right, do I need to call the names?
I think there's only 3 people left. So just
All right.
you, Beth, and Dr. Calvin and Janet can close it out.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you next year.
Yep.